Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if they beat after they're the three that I remember winning against us.
Yeah, there's Duke in 1969. I'll give you. Anyway, let's get you on here. Yeah. All right. Tri-City Sports now. We are now on the line. First guest this program had in its revival, and it's one of the greats of Tri-City Sports, Keith Mr. Jennings. He is now the head coach of the Lees-McRae Bobcats women's basketball team, and I'll ask him about that but tomorrow here in a bit. But tomorrow it is the 28th anniversary of what I think is probably the biggest game sporting event in the history of Johnson City. College has got to outweigh high school. Appalachian League, you start thinking about an individual game or performance. It's it's tough to come up with one that occurred at Cardinal Park. But ETSU defeating NC State, which was at that time a real national power, to get into the top, they were ranked 17th the day after that game. It was their highest ever national ranking. And people after that game started talking about ETSU and the Final Four in the same sentence. Keith Jennings, that was your senior year. And I want to ask you, at the start of the season, what were the goals of ETSU your senior year? I know big things were expected, but I mean, were you talking at that time about, hey, this is a team that can be nationally ranked, let's go to the Final Four? What were the goals of the of that team?
Well, at that point, we had already went to the NCAA tournament twice, so knowing that if we won our conference tournament, we would get another invite back through the big dance. That was probably our main focus, because we knew at that time the way that the mid-majors are getting love now, they wasn't exactly giving us that type of love in those days. So we knew that for certain, if we won our tournament, we'd get into the dance, and then after that, we just had to, put in that good luck charm like everybody else that's hoping to win the tournament. But then, also knowing that we were going to play NC State for the second time, and some of the other Division I teams that, of course, that we got to play against, we just wanted to beat all of those guys, and we knew that would only help our chances of getting into the tournament. So, yeah, it was definitely a checklist of things that we wanted to accomplish, and, besides getting knocked out by Iowa, I feel like we definitely achieved a lot that season.
It was always the thing. Why, you mentioned knocked out by Iowa. I can still see that last possession and trying to get the three to, tie the game up. And ETSU was a 10 seed that year, but ranked 17th overall. The victory against NC State, in Johnson City, do you think that was your biggest of your college career, mister?
Yes, because I believe so. Because, so much went into that game. Coach Robinson had left us, and he was now coaching at NC State. And, I became kind of cool with Chris Corciani, who was, like, in the hunt for the all-time assist leader. So it was something definitely we had marked on our calendar. And, it was kind of almost one of those things that we wanted to show Coach Robinson that, he should have probably stayed with us. But we understood that, when you get the opportunity to go back and coach where you played, that's always a motivational factor to go back there. So we were very happy for him, but at the same time, we knew we had a job to do, and we definitely were looking forward to beating them again.
Well, I wanted to point this out. We had Les Robinson on in the first hour here on 1420 WAMB Sports Radio, and Keith Jennings, he mentioned that the year before, and you'd beaten NC State at Reynolds Coliseum, in a game that's kind of been forgotten about, I think, over the years. But anyway, you had defeated Valvano's mighty Wolfpack, and again, at the time, it was a perennial nationally ranked team. I mean, everybody knows about the national title in '83, and NC State had also won it in '74, the whole shebang. But what I was getting to here is Les Robinson had actually been told by Jim Valvano before that game your junior year, he said, you know what, I think I'm going to get the axe here at NC State. You'd be a great person to replace me with the Wolfpack. And so that was when that sort of first came about that Robinson might be coming back. Of course, winning 2 Southern Conference titles and back-to-back NCAAs probably looked good to NC State as well. But what was it like, though, to be able to face your former coach? Now, I know that Alan LaForce was probably the guy who primarily recruited you, but hey, it's your head coach. What was it like playing Les Robinson, the other side, so to speak?
I mean, when it comes to basketball, you got to compete. All of that, friendliness kind of goes out of the window. I will always respect Coach Robinson for giving me the opportunity to come to East Tennessee State and achieve the things that I did personally and both team-wise. But, I guess I didn't think too much about it. I was able to shake his hand, before the game and say hello to him. But other than that, it wasn't any difference than, you always got the personal in it where, a coach leaves you and then you get a chance to play against them and you beat them. I mean, that's always a little bit of a factor, but for me and for the guys, I'm almost sure we wanted to win against anybody. It didn't matter who the coach was on the other team or what players they had on the other team. We just really wanted to get that W by any means possible. And I guess the fact that Coach Robinson was there, it was a sweet victory for us. And I'm sure if it went the other way, he probably would have felt really good too, just about beating the team that you put together. So it kind of, it's going to work to one guy's favor, and on that night, it just happened to work for us.
They're talking to Keith Jennings. I'd say Mr. Basketball when it comes to ETSU. In fact, I think you saw there was some talk about changing the culture recently with ETSU basketball. I know the former athletic director, Richard Sanders, tweeted that out. I think you saw this on Twitter, and I said, wait a minute. Mr. Jennings changed the culture of ETSU basketball here. You're just continuing on with what he started and such. You haven't been nationally ranked. You haven't won any NCAAs yet. Hold on here. This sort of thing. When you look back at those games against NC State, you mentioned Chris Corciani, getting to know him. You left ETSU as the second all-time leader in assists in the history of college basketball. The only guy who had more was Corciani. Have you thought about those NC State ETSU games in the past and just how historic they were because Corciani and you left college basketball 1 and 2 all-time in assists?
Well, if I think about anything in those times, because I was so close to 1,000 assists, I always get on my teammates. Y'all guys couldn't get me 17 more assists. Makes me kind of mad that as many assists that they did. I'd like to go back and see how many assist attempts that we missed on. And so I know I could have probably got 1,000 assists, but, Chris was just a cool guy, man. We actually, my senior year in high school, we were both at UVA, University of Virginia's basketball camp at the same time, and that's when I kind of knew we were on a different level because he didn't have to go through the camp too much, but I pretty much had to go through everything.
Oh, boy.
So I was like, okay, maybe one day we'll get a chance to really play, because I don't think he knew how good I was. And then when that opportunity presented itself, it was almost that was a personal one. It was like, okay, now I can really show you. You didn't have to do anything at UVA. You just got to relax and chill. But now you're going to get to see what it is like to deal with me. And so that was more so of that. He played with some wonderful guys, Rodney Monroe, Gugliotta, some great guys that could score the ball. And, I was blessed enough to play with some great guys like Greg Dennis and Calvin Talbot and Alvin and Major. So, we both were blessed to play with some guys that could put the ball in the basket. And, we did our job as far as getting it to them.
Well, we're talking to Keith Jennings, and I'll ask the question. Were you the one that squirted the water on the floor that Rodney Monroe slipped on?
That just might have been, I think I might have took a charge over in that area, and, the guys weren't there to wipe the floor up as much as they normally do, like they do in today's game. So that might have been the cause of that.
Are you? I mean, I know that there was actually at the time, sports talk radio was in its infancy at the time in this market, but I remember hearing a caller to a sports talk show after that game and say, I wouldn't be surprised if Mister, he does everything, squirted some water on the floor there and all this. But, so I know I am taking your original answer to my question, though, is somewhat tongue in cheek. Do we have it there?
Yes, no, most definitely. I definitely play to win, but I'm not an underhanded guy where I got to cheat to win. I feel like my squad at the time, we could beat you fair and square, so there was no need for underhandedness.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your current job. You're the head coach at with the Lees McRae Bobcats. You've got the women's basketball team there at 5-6. You are coming off a tough loss to Lenore Rhine. But tell us a little bit about this team. I mean, I know that historically Lees McRae has struggled in college in women's basketball, so 5-6 might not be considered that poor of a record, especially when you consider you've had to play the number 14 team in Division II North Georgia, as well as North Carolina Greensboro on the road. Tell us about your current team right here. How far do you think your team can go?
I mean, well, I'm pleased with my team. It's a different mentality. Like, coming from East Tennessee and coming from, where I played in Culpeper and just basketball in general all of my life, I just don't take too kindly to losing.
Sure.
So, just trying to turn the team around, as you said, that before I, took over, they hadn't made the conference tournament since '09. So to finally get this team into the conference tournament, and even though we did have a losing record, this small glory is kind of how I'm approaching it. And this year, I think we got definitely a good chance of surprising some teams. The girls are working hard, but I feel like now they kind of understand me more as a coach. I think last year, when you take over a team that's kind of fragile, and you kind of got to try to stay as positive as possible with them, knowing that when I was a player, I was more demanding. And so this year, I've been able to be a little bit more demanding. And, I think it's paying off. And, I think this break that just came, everybody needed a nice little break just to go home and gather themselves for a little while. But when we get back for New Year's Eve and get ready for the second part of the season, I'm looking forward to seeing some good basketball, and I'm excited about the opportunity.
And Meg Crawford, I know from Sullivan Central, underneath, she's one of your better players and all that. And you also have Mackenzie Blankenship from the Tri-Cities at Happy Valley. Well, Keith Jennings, it's always great to talk to you and relive some of the glory days with ETSU. And it looks like perhaps you might be instilling some glory days at Lees McRae now with the women's basketball team. At least it's my hope that you are, if you will. We're at the end. We'll see you next week. Tri-City Sports Now.
14 seconds.